Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedComms So information, resources, activities for people who work across the globe in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and the associated businesses. We've got a lot of information in the various websites. In particular, I'd point you at NetworkPharma TV, where we've now got hundreds of videos, many of which are based on webinars like this, but there's other sorts of video content there as well. I'd also give a shout out to First MedComms Job. Those of you who are interested in joining MedComms, maybe as a medical writer, account manager, whatever, will find lots of useful information at First MedComms Job. So the webinars are great. I can get people in from around the world. And again, we've got a big international audience again. Without further ado, we're going to crack on. We're going to talk today about plain language summaries. And we've got a couple of people from SIRO to join us, Shweta and Salgo. Shweta, I'm going to hand over to you to kick us off. Is that right?
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for having us over today. And I take this opportunity of talking about one of the most important topics to me. I'm very passionate about plain language summaries and patient engagement. So yes, I'm excited to talk about it today. Thank you, everybody, for joining in for today's webinar. I hope I answer some questions and you're convinced that it is a very important document type. So plain language summaries, although a lot of people say it is simple, but it is just a seemingly simple document type. We'll start with some introductions about the speakers today. So you have myself. I'm Shweta Pitre. I have about 9 years of experience in publications. My expertise are with real-world evidence and health economics outcomes research publications. Like I said, I'm very passionate about patient engagement, patient inclusivity, and therefore I have been involved in the plain language summary space. With SIRO, I have been actively involved in developing competencies for plain language summaries, core writer group development, SOPs and processes, and that's where I add to the PLS domain. Over to Salgo.
Hi, everybody. I'm Salgo. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Shweta. After a few years of academic research, I joined SIRO as a publication writer. I have extensive experience in working with publication documents, various publication documents like manuscripts and other secondary and other manuscript documents. Other than that, I have been a part with the core group of developing the PLS competency with SIRO, or in the capacity of a writer and as a reviewer. Hope we all have a great time discussing and engaging with each other together. Welcoming all of you to our webinar.
Thank you so much, Salgo. Let's start off with what are plain language summaries. Like I said, the seemingly simple document type. By definition, plain language summaries are clear, concise, and reader-friendly versions of complex scientific content. They provide a summary of an article which is non-technical, jargon-free language that is understandable to non-specialist audience. But the question is why plain language summary matters. One of the most important things is it improves accessibility. Plain language summaries serve as a gateway for making this information accessible, making scientific information accessible to wider audience. You have non-expert audience, you've got the general public, you've got policymakers, all of this. So basically, plain language summaries helps break down barriers and enables people to engage with scientific knowledge. It improves transparency and empowerment. So basically, they ensure that the research findings are not hidden behind a veil of complexity and are accessible to all, even the general public, to make informed decisions. Then it is also important in engagement. When I say engagement, it helps bridge the gap between the scientific community and the public, ensuring that the potential impact of the knowledge, scientific research is understood and appreciated. I think most important is appreciated. Now, when in terms of example, when we were in COVID, a lot of people, early days, anxious about when is the vaccine coming out, what is happening, But one of the biggest barriers was all of the information that was coming out was in the scientific format, and then people couldn't really resonate, couldn't understand, and that is where I think plain language summary plays an important role. It is a medium where the research is understood and importantly appreciated. Lastly, it is important for knowledge translation. It facilitates the transfer of scientific knowledge into practical applications such as policy making and general public disclosure. So you have, these are the reasons why you have plain language summaries and why are they important. But what is another thing, that worries me is there are a lot of myths around plain language summaries. A lot of people just think that it is all about dumbing down, and I beg to differ. Plain language summaries are just simple and clearer documents, but they are definitely not dumber. They are very important and very important documents that need to be, understood. It is only meant for lay audience. No, it is not meant for lay audience. It is meant for everybody who wants to read it. It's meant for healthcare professionals, policymakers, CEOs, and patients alike. Everybody can use it. And another very important thing, it is very simple. Even a newbie, general, anybody can write plain language summaries. No, that is not true. It is very important because switching from complicated writing to clear content requires a lot of effort. It's critical to choose the right words. It's very easy to say, okay, let's use simple words. No, the right words are important. So plain language summary is just a seemingly simple document type, if I say. Moving on, I wanted to give you, how did we come across plain language summary at SIRO? I think our journey in plain language summaries began back about 5 years back in the day when plain language summaries were also known as patient lay summaries. So we were one of the first ones to talk about patient lay summaries back in the day in 2018 at the ISMAP annual meeting. And ever since, the team at SIRO has been very keen on developing expertise. Although COVID was a bit of a dampener and, our efforts were, took a backseat during COVID, but then we picked up impetus and we, started developing our core competency. We started looking at the literature, what is available. We developed an in-house competency. We developed a core team. We have a team of writers, reviewers, designers, lay reviewers even, who are, play a very critical role in developing, focused and specialized plain language summaries. We all know while we did this, we also did some live work on plain language summaries. We developed some plain language summaries for some landmark projects. Landmark studies. We have developed expertise in training material. We have in-house training guidance documents and all of that for new writers, new designers. Currently, we have some ongoing processes like we developing some SOPs, work instructions. We're also getting into the world of automation for plain language summaries. So this is where SIRO has been trying to make a niche around and contribute to the space of plain language summaries. In our journey in the last 5 years, we've developed some in-house resource packs. We have guidelines and best practices, where we have writing instructions, we have, style instructions, we have instructions for, content requirements. We've also developed an in-house lexicon. So basically, all the scientific jargon and scientific terminologies, all of them have a standard non-jargon, simple English terms. So we have like a ready reckoner, where our writers just access the lexicon and then pick up the words. So this ensures consistency as well. Then we also have templates and design assets where we have, graphic designers trained to develop plain language summaries with infographics. I'll come to that eventually, but which are very easy to understand and resonate. So we have design and templates ready. Again, quality, like I said earlier, it's not just a simple document. It is a very important document. So we treat it with the same rigor as we would treat any other publication document. So we have quality checks in place. We have quality checklists for reviewers and quality controllers and everybody. So we have all of that. And lastly, we training, which is a must. We have constant training and development programs for this thing. So we have our core team is always abreast with the latest happenings in the PLS space, and we have constant trainings happening. Moving on to the different types of plain language summaries, a lot of ambiguity around this. Some people still are struggling to understand that the plain language summaries that we talk about in publications are different from the trial-lay summaries that are out there. So today I would like to take an opportunity to try and clear some amount of ambiguity around the different types of PLSs out there. So the first type and the most known type of plain language summary is the text-based PLSs. These are concise, small text summaries, which you see alongside your article. You would also see that in, you could easily see them on PubMed as well. These are small, brief ones, 250 words around there, just simple texts. Then you have a more longer version of it called the infographic-based PLSs. You would, Yeah, so you would see something like this a lot around, and a lot of this was, floating around during COVID. So you have these, infographic based plain language summary really giving a lot of information. This could be a part of the manuscript, like a graphical abstract, or could also be a supplementary material, as a supplementary material. Then you have the third type, and one of the very important types, the standalone plain language summary of publication. We also call them as PLSP articles. Now, these are long, full-length, robust articles. Okay, these are something that give you details every aspect of the study. Say these are published separately. They have their own access links and they have their own DOIs. But what they basically talk about is the main study paper. They are usually published after the primary study has been published, and they have all the same information, but the language is simple, concise, clear, and jargon-free. And most importantly, these plain language summary of publication, the PLSP articles, have a lot of infographics. So it is very interactive, easy to understand. They also have your complex information in figures and in flow charts. When Salgo takes over, she'll show you some examples. But these are something that are now gaining impetus. They are now gaining momentum. A lot of people are going to towards publishing these. So this is something that that is going to be a next big thing. Moving on to enhanced digital formats. So I wouldn't talk a lot about these today, but there are some things like, you have animated videos which are in plain language. You have some videos of, which talk about the mechanism of action, or some treatment regime in video formats, but they are in lay language. Then you have some doctors talking about treatments aspects, following a landmark study or something like that in terms of podcasts. So these are other digital formats where you would come across plain language summaries. Moving on. So what is happening? Let's talk about some numbers. What is happening in the PLS landscape? How many people are accessing it? What is happening? So let's talk about some numbers again. So the plain language summary, like I said, started early, but you can see a absolute sudden rise, or accelerating rise in the number of PLSs that have been published in the last 5 years. It started picking up in 2018. That's when we started working on it. And in 2020, we had around 838 articles that were published along with the PLS. And I am sure this number has escalated in 3x times in the last 3 years. Moving on. So where do patients look for? What is the access? Where do patients access the plain language summaries? And not only patients, who accesses it and where do we find it? So I think the patients, in terms of patients get their plain language summaries mainly from their healthcare professionals. And I've been, listening to a lot of industry experts, and they say that healthcare professionals use plain language summaries as a very important communication tool with their patients. So that is why this number does not come to me as a surprise. Moving on, now we've seen the different types of PLSs. So what are the most preferred PLS types? It's not surprising, the infographic-based PLSs are the most preferred types. We saw across three, if you see the three indications here, all three indications show that the infographic-based PLSs are the most preferred type. And what are the audiences looking at in the PLS? Number one, the disease state. Why? They all want to know what are the symptoms, what are they going to go through, what are they feeling, what is the problem that they're facing. So basically, they want to know and get more information on the disease type. Then they would want to know what are the treatment requirements, what are the treatments available, are there any lifestyle modification needed, what is the safety of the treatment. So these are some of the important aspects that patients or audiences look for in a PLS. So again, like we said, like I started off saying this, the audiences are many HCPs, policymakers, blah, blah, blah. I said a lot of people have, access to plain language summaries. Audiences are, it's a wide range of audiences. But who exactly access a PLS? And if I look at it here, the healthcare professionals are the highest readers of plain language summaries. Now, this number resonates with this number. So when I look at it that way, I know that healthcare professionals would potentially access plain language summaries to improve their communication with patients. It gives them a ready reckoner, a document to understand it in a simple way and then communicate the issue in a simple way. So I think this number makes a lot of sense. Moving on, what are the reasons? Why do people actually look at plain language summaries? Why do patients look at, and why do patients and caregivers look at plain language summaries? One of the important things is they want to know more about the treatment options. I am taking treatment A. Is there a treatment B? What is happening with treatment A? What is the efficacy? What is the safety? Is it safe for me to take it? So these are the reasons why patients basically look for plain language summaries. They also want to talk to other patients about their issues, and that is why they also look at plain language summaries. Why do healthcare professionals look at plain language summaries? Simple, to understand more about the topic. The more simply they understand, the more simply they can communicate. And a lot of industry sponsors now, industry experts tell us that if it is easy to see, easy to read, if a study is easy to understand, even if they have a scientific background, if a study is easy to understand, if they read a plain language summary simply, if they understand it, then the downloads, the access to articles have also are also increased. So this is what the numbers say. Plain language summary is not just for patients, not just for general audience. Even specialist audience sometimes just read plain language summaries to decide whether they want to read the whole article or not. So this is a very, very important aspect of plain language summaries. So we've discussed about the landscape. We've discussed about the different types. So I think it's time to discuss about what goes into a plain language summary. How do we write plain language summaries, and what are the various aspects and key areas that we look into while developing a plain language summary. So I'd like to call upon Salgo to take us through the next topic.
Yeah, thanks, Shweta. That was very insightful. So as Shweta said, plain language summaries is not, the document is not a very simple document. Though it looks simple, it has a robust process behind it. So at SIRO itself, we have various people involved in developing a plain language summary, mainly like PLSPs. If I talk about PLSPs, one of the type of PLSs that Shweta was talking about, we have writers, we have first level reviewers, second level reviewers, we have your graphic designers, we have QC controllers, and again, we have lay reviewers, along which is a new subsection which is involved in PLS. And then obviously the other stakeholders would be your clients, who would be your POCs, your authors, your main lead authors. And then again, if the team wants, they can even have patient authors involved in this development of a PLS. So there are a lot of stakeholders involved in developing one PLSP or even a simple PLS. So while developing PLSs, what are the key things that you have to look into? So the first thing would be who's your target audience? Like just now, Shweta spoke about so many target audiences that we look at. So who's your target audience? So once you know that you want to target it towards patients, or do you want to target it to specialists, or do you want to target it to very simple lay people? So this is the first thing that has to be decided. So according to the target audience, we decide on the readability scores. So usually on the Fleshkin grade level, there are 3 scores: basic, average, and skilled. We would prefer it to lay between in the average section, wherein patients, caregivers, even non-specialist audiences, policymakers, journalists, all of them can pick up the language from there, and it's easier for them to understand. So that is the first thing which is very important to have during plain language summaries, that your readability score is lying in between the average score. Then the next thing that we look at is data sources. What are your data sources? So for Shweta just now described the various types of PLSs. So if you're writing a small text summary PLS, obviously this goes with your manuscript. With your manuscript, it gets indexed in PubMed. So at that time, your data sources are the same as what it was for your manuscript. So you will have your CSR or any other documents that you were using for developing the manuscript. Those will be your data sources even for your plain language summary. But at the same time, if you're developing something like a PLSP, a complete publication, so that PLSP is again a secondary publication to your primary publication which has been published. The PLSP comes after your primary publication. So your PLSP itself again is indexed. It can be, it has its own DOI link. So it is considered chartered as secondary publication. So again, this has its own robust data sources. One of the data sources will be the publication, the primary publication that is published. And other than that, you will obviously have all your other data sources which you have used to write your publication. And within these, while writing the PLSP, one of the important thing, again, which you have to note is you have to mention your primary publication, which has been published. You have to mention that this is where you can find this primary publication and you can go and read. Then the next thing that you have to make sure about is the language and tone and style. So what is the language that you're using? Like we said, plain. So you have to use simple, clear, and concise language, which has to be easily understood, trying to avoid jargons, trying to avoid too many abbreviations. So nowadays, when we read any kind of manuscripts to reduce word counts, we have so many abbreviations, and which should be avoided, especially while writing PLSs, because it gets very confusing for the lay audience or a non-specialist audience to capture that. Similarly, we should always try and write an active voice, try to be in a conversational tone throughout the PLS so that it's easier to understand and also engaging. So like we would want our audience to get engaged with the document, want to read through the whole document, not just leave it at the beginning. So a conversational tone and an easy is much more easier and it's much more engaging with the audience. Then again, the format. So if we are considering a graphical abstract, if you're considering a text-based 150, 200 word PLS format, what do you want to go, how do you structure it? So like in any basic manuscript, you will follow your MRAD format. Similarly, even a PLS would follow some kind of a format. So that format has to be captured, and especially when you're making a full-length PLSP. In that case, you will have a lot of visual aids, you will have a lot of graphic designing elements involved. So deciding the format will help and reduce the timeline and to create better PLSs with a shorter timeline. And one of the most important things is the key messages. What are the key messages you want to put across with this PLS? So with every trial or with every study that is conducted, you have so many outcomes. Nowadays, the outcomes are increasing with each study. The PROs, a lot of outcomes are coming up. So what are the key messages you want to push forward with this specific PLS is something that has to be decided beforehand, so that the message is clearly coming out from the introduction till the conclusion. So like most manuscripts or studies have 1 or 2 primary endpoints and a couple secondary endpoints. It's not always possible to add each and every secondary endpoint into the key messages of the PLSV. So deciding what are your key messages that you want to present is a very important part while you're developing a PLS. And then obviously the review and feedback over here, reviews and feedbacks from lay reviewers is very important. And so that you're sure that what you have written down as a writer, the person, it is actually simple and it's concise and it's legible to a lay reader. So we all come from a scientific background. We think that writing plain language would be much easier, but at the same time, and understanding of a complex mechanism of action of a specific drug or how a disease is manifesting, all that and explaining all that in simple lay language terms gets very challenging, even if we understand it very well. So that review and feedback process is very helpful in this specific area, especially from lay reviewers or from patient authors. So we know what are they actually expecting from us. So with this, I would like to go ahead and explain where all can you publish these plain language summaries. So like we have now nowadays, most of the main media houses, publication houses are publishing some format of plain language summaries as an enhanced content. So you will be able to add something into your manuscript as a supplementary or maybe as a plain language in text format, or as mostly in some format in the supplementary areas, which will be housed on the journal site. Other than that, we have standalone PLSPs, which are gaining a lot of impetus nowadays, which are mainly housed by the Future Science Group, Taylor Francis Group, Sage, and Beccaris Publishing. So these four are publishing a full length PLSPs, which are very important, which provide the maximum information which a patient or a healthcare professional would be looking forward to, would be there in these PLSPs. Then obviously from the need for PLSs has not come up in last 5 years, but then there are a lot of non-journal opportunities which were there from quite some time. A few of these are run by non-profit organizations, wherein they are trying to simplify a lot of studies which are out there, and they put up plain language summaries on their websites. There's discussions going on these websites. Right? So there are a lot, if you can surely check these out, there is a lot of interesting pieces out there. Similarly, if you know, I believe everybody knows Figshare. So one of our big pharmas like Pfizer, who are committed into publishing each of their study as a plain language summary, is hosting their plain language summaries on Figshare. So like earlier, many pharmas were, the main trend was committing to publishing each trial. Nowadays, the new trend that pharmas are catching up to is committing to publishing each publication as a PLS also. So looking forward to seeing a lot of PLSPs or PLSs out there. Going forward, I would like to show you some specific examples from some mock PLSPs which we had created at SIRO. If you see, though we were talking about transparency and accessibility, you see some of these terms are blurred just because these are some proprietary information for our clients. So please bear with us. Other than that, the first thing that what you would notice is the titles of these PLSPs. So usually the titles for normal publications are much more complicated. So what we have tried to do here is we have tried to make it simple. So using terms like effectiveness instead of efficacy, or does this drug work, is this safe, and does it work well in patients? So these are some kind of changes in word terminologies that help to make it easier for patients to or any late language specialist to understand these things. Similarly, we have a very specific different term section that is added into PLSPs, wherein how to say a specific word. Many a times we come across some words which are very difficult to pronounce, some drug names or even the disease names, or some specific words within the manuscript which are difficult to pronounce. So these sounds are embedded within the PLSPs. The patient or the non-specialist audience can play it and can hear how do you pronounce this word. Similarly, then there are some other specific terminologies. So if on the screen you may see terminology like enzymes. Enzymes is a very simple concept. I believe most of us would know what an enzyme is, but then even such terminologies are explained in PLSPs so that the lay audience does not feel left out and does not have to go out of the way and search what does this mean. So we try to put small terminologies around the areas where they can understand what these terms mean and what it specifically means in the context of the PLS. Going forward, I would like to show you something very interesting. So this is a study design which we had created. So we all know that study design is one of the most important figures for any study within in a publication. So the study design on the left hand side, which you see, is a published figure. So this is from a non-inferiority trial. So if you see, there are around four different sections within this phases in this study design. So the first one was a screening phase, then there was an open label phase, then there was a maintenance phase, and then there was a double blind phase. So it is a very complicated study design, and in each phase, the patients are given different different interventions, and which are much more gets very complicated to understand as for a patient to go through that study design. So we made a very simple, easy to understand and study design figure for in the PLSP, which if you take one look at it, it is so easy to understand what happened in this study. Going forward, eligibility criteria. So now if you have read a manuscript, you know eligibility criteria is one of the most complicated areas wherein who was included in the study and who was not included in the study. And most patients want to know this, that who was included in this study, because does this apply to me? So, and it's one of the, it's a difficult concept. Many concepts that are involved in the eligibility criteria are difficult sometimes to understand. And so we try to create a infographic format over here, wherein patients could, wherein it makes it easier to understand who were included in the study, which is in the darker color, and then who were not included in the study in the lighter color. And similarly, if you see, there are some words which cannot be changed, which cannot be made easier. So those are explained below in the small text box like I showed you before. So these are some things which makes it easier for the patients to understand going forward to results. So now results is the most important part in every manuscript. Everybody wants to know what happened, what at the end of the day, what has happened. So over here, what we have tried to do is we have tried to visualize these results for the non-specialist audience. So if you see on the left-hand side, this is a snapshot taken from the table from the manuscript. We have tried to visualize it as much as possible. Many times when we say 97% and 47%, a lay person may not be able to visualize it. It is not easy for them to understand how different is 97 to 47, though it seems very easy to us, it seems very simple to us, but then still it is very confusing. And this kind of a format wherein in the figure wherein we are showing that how many people out of these many people have gone through this specific treatment or had this extent of the disease, it makes the person understand, and it makes it much easier for them to go through the results, and the time spent on the results is much lesser otherwise than you would spend to understand the whole concept and the results. Going forward from here, I believe, Shweta, would you like to take it ahead?
Thank you, Salgo. Thank you for taking us through the various aspects of plain language summaries. So very quickly, I think we'll go on to the next topic, a very important topic, that is we're talking about AI. I think this was important. It is important to talk about AI. So what is AI? What does AI do? What is the role of AI in plain language summaries? So AIs, I think they enhance the creation of plain language summaries by leveraging advanced algorithms, linguistic understanding, and automation to distill the complex information that is available into clear, simple language. So what they can do is they can analyze the semantic relationship between words and phrases, which help them to capture some core concepts in a document, and then they concisely, make it simple in a plain language summary. So now the question is, where do we come in the picture? Where do publication writers come in the picture when it comes to AI? What do we do? So human expertise at us, we play a very crucial role in developing these AIs, and refining these AI concepts. Okay, so that is our first step. Then we also bring, what we bring in is our domain expertise. Okay, so without that, nothing can move forward. So while AI brings automation and efficiency into the process, we bring, what is the most important aspect is relevance. We bring out quality, we bring out domain expertise, and importantly, we bring out ethical considerations. So I think to summarize in a very simple way, collaboration between AI and us human writers is a very synergistic process. AI systems benefit from the knowledge that we have, benefit from the judgment, from the critical thinking, and the ethical consideration that we have. And they help the human experts like us to leverage AI tools to enhance efficiency, consistency, scalability, and effect. And overall, it improves improves the cost effectiveness. So I think it is going to be a very important collaboration going forward, and it is the next way forward, I think. With that, I think we're done with our main presentation, and we're open to question and answers. Over to you, Peter. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Shweta. Thanks. So can we lose that slide? We've got 10 minutes or so to answer some questions and have a chat. Anybody in the audience, please use either of the two chat boxes. We've got quite a few questions and comments have come in. People are talking to each other in the chat box, which is great. A lot of what you said made a lot of sense to me. And I think a really important point, which I tend to get a bit excited about, is when people are talking about PLS, The problem is the terminology, and it's been applied over the last few years to different situations, and people talk about it. But you can see it in the questions, and to some extent, you could hear it in what you were saying. You know, plain language summary isn't just for patients, and yet we keep talking about lay audiences and patients being, requiring to be able to understand and so on. I think there's a lot of confusion in there still, and I'm just intrigued how that works out in practice, because PLS isn't just one thing. You've described how it isn't in terms of different formats, but it's also not one thing in terms of an audience. If somebody, I assume what happens these days is a pharma client effectively says, we're going to publish this paper and we're going to produce a PLS alongside it. Is it frankly as simple as the pharma company then says, our interpretation of a PLS is this, what we want is this? You see what I mean? Because otherwise you've got a lot of people competing with their sort of interpretations of that. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think there are various pharmas that have a different stand to publishing PLSs. Some are absolutely averse to it. Some are very transparent, like we know Pfizer. They want their science to be disseminated to the greater audience, and they want inclusivity and all of that. And then some are targeting only healthcare professionals, saying, we want to educate them so they can communicate in a more better way with the patients. Our ultimate customers are our patients, and we want effective communication there. That is the way, that is the stand. So I think the way I look at it is each organization, like there is ambiguity in the terms, there's ambiguity there, where do they want to place their PLSs? There is a lot of thought that needs to go behind there. And then again, plain language summaries are something that are added cost to a company. So they need to, basically think about it upfront, when they have their publication plan that, okay, we're doing plain language summaries along with primary, then we're doing plain language summaries for this. This is where we position it. So a lot of thought goes behind it. It's not like we just decide one fine day, okay, let's make plain language summaries and that's it. A lot of thought behind that goes in there.
But there's also then, by definition, such a variety of approaches that are being taken. And it's been interesting over the last few years talking about PLS, which we have been talking about for a long time.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we'd talk about PLS, but have very few examples to share with anybody, sort of thing. And then over the last couple of years, that just seems to have mushroomed, as it were. More people are talking about it.
Yes.
But as I say, people are talking about different things. Just to come back to, I'm sorry, Ashley, I think was asked a couple of times, why are more PLS is being more, why are people publishing more PLS? I mean, there's a huge pressure, and there's an industry-wide pressure to produce more PLS.
Yes.
And as I say, part of my problem is that's fine, because the principle is obviously a good thing to open up accessibility. It's just people are talking about different things. Yeah. Again, I know this has been this is a question. I'm not the first one to ask this question, but let's just use it for a couple of minutes and see what you both think. If part of the point of this is opening up accessibility, you've said a lot of the figures show HCPs are the ones who are, or yes, many of the ones who get accessibility. Why publish the technical paper in the first place? Why don't we all just produce a paper that's more accessible in the first place? Why? Just try and run, you know what I'm trying to get at. Just run with that for a minute or two, both of you, because at the moment we're producing two, especially the PLS publication, which you're clearly stating is essentially the same, is the full paper again. Why would we publish two? We're acknowledging that the first one doesn't get accessed well enough, so we're now producing another one to make it more accessible. Why not just do that in the first place? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, that is a good point to debate on, actually. So you have key opinion leaders, you have specialist doctors, you have specialist people who understand complex data, who want to see proper numbers, who want to see your complex Kaplan-Meier graphs, and you want to see the trend and the process and all of that. So you have an audience who want to look at that, who want to look at the hardcore science bit. So I don't think, plain language summaries can ever replace all of that information. I mean, there is a debate, right? If you have clinical CSRs, then why are we making publications? I mean, it's like each has its own importance. You cannot replace it. There are some nuanced information that goes in a primary paper which may not be captured in a PLS because it's not relevant. or it is not needed. You have some important aspects of the methods of a study which are not really relevant to the general audience, So we may put a little bit of less focus on the methods and put more focus on the results and the discussion, and the conclusion. Whereas, in the discussion, you talk about literature, you compare it with the different literature, you talk about a relative environment and all of that in a primary paper. So you have, each paper has its unique application. And I don't think, either of them can, replace it.
Okay, but to be provocative, then you don't just need 2 versions, you need an infinite number of versions for each of those different sorts of people, sort of thing. So where do you draw the line? I don't know. Salgo, have you got a view on this?
Yeah, so like Peter, like you mentioned, I had read a paper on Nature where they were actually mentioning this, that the readability scores of of normal manuscripts is going really high, that even specialists are not able to understand. So that was a concern which was brought up. So I agree with you that why can't we make it simpler? But then to a point of a plain language summary, like I just now said, in PLSPs, everything is not explained. Like all the results of which is there in the primary publication does not translate into a PLSP. Most of the times into a PLSP, only the primary objective of the study and some secondary objectives of the study are translating into the PLSP. So, but at the same time, and in a publication, we try and include most of your primary and secondary objectives, and we try to put in most results into that. So so for a farmer or for any other person who's trying to understand the study, they get a full picture of the study, and that is mainly required for HCPs and mainly for the specialists who are deciding that is this treatment better or is that treatment better, or is A better or is B better. When they want to decide something like that, having a full hand information is very important. But then for a patient, that kind of more than that kind of information they want to see is will this be helpful for me? So the main thing from PLSPs, what we are trying to project is we are trying to educate them about the disease. It's not only about the intervention. It's starting from the disease to the molecule, that is the intervention, the molecule, and then coming to the basic results, that how these results show that this molecule is better than the other one, or maybe this molecule is better than the placebo. So it does not, a PLSP right now, like most PLSPs right now do not have the complete set of results. So it's not, I wouldn't say that it can completely replace, but then I agree with your point that we can make the primary publication a little more simpler, that like today the readability scores are going really high. So maybe it can be a little more simpler.
Okay, and to be honest, I mean, to go off in a slightly different direction, but with regard to the primary publication, the reason you involve professional medical writers in producing a publication is to try and make that technical publication as accessible as you can within a specialist audience, as opposed to someone who can't write publishing technical information. I get all that. I do think there's a gulf though between the information for patients, which is a big enough spectrum as itself, and HCPs, who are a more educated audience. And I do find myself getting a bit confused in there as to where we're trying to pitch it. But just to follow the patient side of it for a moment, and so there's a number of questions coming at me from different directions, I can't keep up. But stick with the patients just for the moment. I'm just interested about, because you mentioned patient reviewers getting involved, patient authors getting involved. That's interesting, and it's a relatively new development, I think. So just give us a minute or so, just tell us a little bit about how you're involving patients in the reviews and the authorship of these things. Can you do that?
Sure.
I don't know who the best person to ask is. Sorry, who wants it?
So for like in the review process, once the PLSPs or the PLSP is ready, we along with our reviewers within SIRO, what we currently have in process is along with the reviewers, we sent it across to a lay reviewer within SIRO who does review the PLSP and get back to us with pointers which they don't understand or are not able to catch up on, which we can develop within the PLSP again. But at the same time, there are patient authors who come across from the pharma side, so who are selected by the pharma themselves. Many a times the patients who have participated within the trial, or maybe some patient advocate who has been working with them for that specific disease group or disease area, can be a part of this as a in the PLSP as a patient author. So even so, once it goes from our end to the other end, to the authors, even their reviews and that comes up into picture. So we can have two different types of from our end we have a lay reviewer, or also we are trying to get in some patient advocacy groups who will help us review these documents. Currently we have some lay reviewers involved in the process. Other than that, like I said, you can always have patient authors. Nowadays the talk is that we should have patients with us from the beginning of from the protocol design. So if a patient advocate is there from the beginning, from the time that protocol design is designed for a trial, obviously they will be with us till the end, and when we are working on the PLSP, so we will get some inputs from their end. So, or else if not from that end, I have seen some case studies wherein people who were on the trial, patients who were on the trial were picked up for the PLSP as a patient author. So that happens for PLSP. So that helps a lot because at the end of the day, we all are scientific writers, and we have some background knowledge for these studies, and we have some background knowledge for the disease. So it's not always easy for us to imagine what the patient is expecting, or what the lay person is expecting from us from the specific document. So it's always helpful to have a lay reviewer and a patient author on board.
How easy is it to find the patient reviewer? Are they enthusiastic about joining in with this sort of thing?
It's really nice that you asked me this question, because I was in a patient task force group discussion a couple of days back, and that it was one topic we discussed, and they said we need a directory of patient authors. We need a directory of people who are involved, who want to participate, who want to review, who want to understand PLSPs and contribute to this space. So it is not very easy to get, but you have patient engagement groups who are volunteering to support in this development. Yeah.
Okay. We're running out of time, I think, and there's a bunch of different questions I'd love to get involved in. Rebecca's question, I thought we'd just pick up, and maybe we are heading into the final minute or two. I think what Rebecca's basically saying is one of the wariness around PSL, particularly from a patient point of view, accepting all that we've said already about the confusion around that, but the wariness around publishing PLS for patients accessing it, and the problem with that becoming a compliance problem in terms of promotional activity and so on. Have you got a comment on that side of things?
Compliance. I'm not clear about compliance. As in, you're talking about ethical compliance. You're talking about,
because you're basically you're going into patient information. You're going into a whole load of compliance issues about promoting medicines to patients.
So I think one important aspect to understand here is we state facts. There is no promoting a treatment or talking against it or pro it. We talk about what is published. We just maintain the same tone. That is one. Second, I think the ethical consideration in giving out information, we only giving out information in lay language is already there in the public domain. It's already published. That information goes out in the lay language. So there's nothing about at patient level information that is coming out in terms of plain language summaries. We're not compromising any kind of ethics or any kind of personal information that could potentially compromise a patient's identity or the patient information. Nothing of that sort comes out with plain language summaries. And
yeah, so
okay, I'm sure that there might be more of a debate. Sorry, Salgo, go on.
Yeah, so like what you said, using neutral and factual language and avoiding superlatives, emotional words, all that has to be completely avoided while writing a PLS. And we have to ensure that there is no commercial bias. It's same like how you write a manuscript. how you write a manuscript. When you write a manuscript, you do not add any promotional tone to it. Similarly, even in PLSPs, you're not supposed to add any kind of promotional tone that, yes, this, though I said, yeah, is this A is better than B, you can't write that in a PLSP. It's not, it has to be factual.
Okay, sorry, Shweta, were you trying to say something there as well? Sorry, I thought you were trying to say
No, I agree with it. That's it.
Okay, I think there's probably a debate around that one, but anyway, okay. What I was going to, I'm sorry, there are too many questions coming at me. So sorry, everybody, if we're not answering your questions. I think we probably should wrap it up now. I think there's so much more we could talk about here. And it's absolutely fascinating to listen to you, and it's great to see the conversations that are going on there. I think for those of you in the audience, don't rush away. We've got a few minutes, and we'll try and cover off a couple more points. But for the point of view of the recording, I'm going to draw the line there. Say huge thanks to Salgo and Shweta for joining us. I know I can speak for you and say that you'd love to hear from people. LinkedIn is an easy way, so please do. Anybody watching this, follow up. If you're interested in what I'm doing, MedComms networking.com, of course, is the place to go. I'm very happy to talk to anybody anytime. So just for the moment and for today, I'd like to say huge thanks, Hannes. Give us a little wave and we'll stop the recording. Take care. Bye.